Bueno, en primer lugar, efectivamente, daros a todos muchísimas gracias por estar aquí esta tarde con nosotros. Sé que hay gente que todavía se está sentando y me gustaría empezar, por supuesto, dando las gracias a todos los que han participado de esta exposición, de una forma muy especial a las dos personas que me han ayudado y que de hecho fueron las que iniciaron este proyecto, Soledad Gutiérrez, que hasta hace muy poco era la comisaria de TBA21, a María Montero, que la tengo aquí a mi lado y que ha seguido de una forma muy precisa las comisiones de Sonia Levy y de Beatriz Santiago Muñoz. Me gustaría también recordaros que TBA21 acaba de abrir una exposición en Córdoba, con lo cual volver a abrir o abrir hoy una exposición en Madrid no es moco de pavo. Así que para el equipo mi enhorabuena y sobre todo mis gracias, mi agradecimiento, porque producir dos exposiciones no es una cosa tan fácil como parece, en especial a Araceli Alán, que ha estado durante 3 semanas en la sala siguiendo los procesos de instalación. Me gustaría recordar o deciros, para los que no lo sepan, que la exposición surgió como una iniciativa para exponer obras de la colección de TBA21 de una forma distinta. Y una forma distinta se dice rápido, pero realmente encontrar esa forma distinta es algo más complejo de lo que parece. En este sentido, por así decirlo, la exposición tiene una fórmula concéntrica de círculos concéntricos. En el centro están esas obras de colección, Ana Mendieta, Yumana Mana, Lucas Arruda. Están los encargos o comisiones que tienen que ver con los procesos de investigación de casos concretos que están, digamos, que nos ayudan a comprender mejor cuáles son los factores y las circunstancias que alteran y afectan la acción humana sobre la naturaleza. En este sentido, la obra de Sonia Levy y la de Beatriz Santiago Muñoz son importantes. Y un tercer grupo de obras que son hechas también para esta exposición, pero de una forma tal vez más específicas para el espacio. En este grupo tenemos la pintura y el gran mural que veréis en la pared de Inês Zenha. Y bueno, gracias porque es un verano de trabajo, meses y meses. Y Saelia Aparicio, que ha hecho una obra magnífica y que además debo agradecer que acaba de ser madre hace 15 días y no es una cosa sencilla hacer una producción de obra nueva desde el estudio de Londres y participar de esta forma. Es mucha la generosidad. Y también Duk Hee, que ha hecho no una obra especial, es una obra que de hecho había producido Tabacalera, es la primera obra que veis en la exposición, pero que ha adaptado también para esta exposición de una forma especial. Así, de un modo muy rápido, resumo un poco la familia o las familias que tienen relación en esta muestra que vais a ver dentro de nada. Esta mañana explicaba lo de la inteligencia líquida, no es tan fácil como parece. Y a muchos nos debe parecer, y al principio es la mejor forma tal vez de aproximarse a un concepto nuevo, una metáfora, una forma de hablar o un modo de referirse al hecho de que también la inteligencia puede estar en el océano. Pero uno no para mucha atención a este tipo de cosas y piensa que en el fondo estamos hablando de un giro literario. Pero tal vez sea menos literario de lo que nos parece. Hay un libro fantástico que se acaba de publicar no hace mucho que se llama The Emergency of Queer Nature. Y ahora sí me voy a pasar al inglés porque si no estas señoras no me van a entender. There is a new book by Aiko Onda, which is an incredible biologist, Japanese biologist that is working in Oxford. And she published a book called The Emergency of Queer Nature. In that book she says that one of the big problems that we have in the Western society is to understand gender after individuation. So we think about gender as something that the individual animals possess, and that is very difficult to transform. And then she says in other societies, for example, the Japanese one, and she actually talks about science and Buddhist beliefs and Shinto as like bodies of knowledges that are intimately related in Asia, to understand how for her there is a moment before individuation that, of course, happens in the subatomic level, bacteria, viruses, but also forms of systems that are not visible to the human eye that create something that she calls queer nature. You may say, well, again, it's a form, it's a way of speaking, because how can you talk about queerness when not even sexuality has been assigned? And then she responds, not at all, because we are talking about a readiness, the possibility of something becoming something else and responding to the needs and demands of what nature is actually molding and making because of the alterations produced by external factors, as for example, the human action. And I think that this is a good way to understand what is meant by liquid intelligence. So it's something very similar to trying to imagine the agency that exists when it's not possessed by those that make decisions with language. Of course, as humans, we are super accustomed to think that we can only prevent disasters to happen, or we can only come to an agreement of what to do, and also what is, for example, freedom and how to articulate it politically if we have a language that can talk about it. So how can mushrooms, how can the animal world, how can nature at all defend or even you know, not only defend, but describe a project about democracy? Can that happen? And clearly for us, it's a no. It's a beautiful dream, but it's a no. But in other cultures, it's really a yes. They do have the power of making decisions. And this is actually what liquid intelligence means. It means only that not only we need to protect in a more or less, let's say, paternalistic way what we already destroy. It's not enough to reverse the negative action in a positive action. It is even more important to start imagining how the ocean and how nature has an agency. It means how can it make decisions? And actually, nature needs to make decisions. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here together coexisting. We are actually coexisting thanks to the generosity of nature that is actually not only annihilating us because we are trying to annihilate in her, so to say. So just as a way of introduction, this is not going to be very long, and I'm going to start by some very simple questions to everyone and each of you, because you're going to see the works. Sí. No, but we talk in the. I think it's okay if we talk all in English. No, but you understand me, no? It goes. Vale. So I'm going to start by making a very simple question to every one of you, starting by Inês, and then and then Beatriz. We follow. It's just explain in few words what are we going to see in few minutes.
To my work.
The work that you just did.
Yeah, of course. So, as Chus was saying, that nature has extreme queer qualities. That's the main inspiration for my work, because it has often been said in Western society, queer people have been portrayed as unnatural, as freaks, as monsters. And when you're actually looking into it, it's extremely queer. It doesn't penetrate, it doesn't kill, it doesn't dominate. So nature ends up to be, to me, I reappropriate it and I create visual narratives to celebrate what is queer resilience, what is to be inside your body and understand water embodiments inside your body. Because queer, non-queer, we are all made of water. And this is what connects us with other beings, be it natural, not natural. So when you see water in my work, is the water that exists inside our bodies. So what I created is this visual narrative where you see a person that doesn't have any sort of gender. I allow people to project whatever they want into it. And there's a plant that comes out of their mouths. This plant is a symbol of resilience, a symbol of hope. It's an entanglement, it's made of feathers. But you will notice that all the knots that exist in this plant, if there was more pressure or force applied to it, it could strangle you. But it doesn't, because this is what my work does for me. I like to use it as a form to transform anger into acts of love and resilience. And it's also about my queer family, my chosen family, and you will see that the characters are leading each other underneath the water. How to breathe inside water. Humans cannot breathe inside water, and this is how it feels to be queer in a society that is not made for us. So we rely on mutual support to help each other how to navigate in a world that is not meant for us.
Beatriz.
La misma pregunta, es como
Es la
Miss
misma para
Universe.
todas. Es la misma para todas.
Perfecto.
Estoy haciendo economía de preguntas.
Muy bien, ok, me encanta. Pues van a ver 3 películas en 16 milímetros, unas maquinotas proyectándolas, es como un trabajo muy material, sensorial, y una serie de dibujos. Yo empecé pensando en el litoral, ese espacio que está entre el mar y la tierra, que está constantemente cambiando. Y hay una persona con quien comencé a trabajar y filmar, que solamente lo ves ahora por un momentito, Luis, acostado en una hamaca con una sábana roja, pero ese proceso de pensar en el litoral me llevó a pensar en los antecedentes de la figura excluida viviendo en ese espacio que tiene que tener mucha atención, que tiene que ser no un yo, sino una especie de yo-mar, ¿no? Entre las dos, estar muy atento sensorialmente a ese pensamiento del océano. Y así llegué a Filoctetes, una figura de la mitología griega, abandonado por sus compañeros por tener una herida apestosa y dolorosa. Y pues como comencé a pensar a través de esa figura, ¿no? como un antecedente del pensamiento yo océano o yo mar, ¿no? Entre medio, como una especie de como nervio muy, muy atento al mar. Creo que
Bien.
eso lo describe.
Sonia.
So maybe to situate the work a little bit, it's a work that stems initially from a commission from TBA21 Academy that was based in Venice. So my work is about the Venetian lagoon, and also I spend time there. So it's a very perhaps situated work. And through my time there, I was thinking with others as well, collaborating with marine biologists and environmental anthropologists as well, to try and perhaps understand Venice through its relation with the lagoon and the kind of interdependencies between Venice, which is a city that is very much known as this sort of a pinnacle of human culture and grand history, and perhaps the lagoon is less regarded as an ecological space. And so one of the approaches I attempted in that work is to think about what it would mean to think about to submerge the camera in the lagoon and to start to collect perhaps alternative stories and counter narrative to this space that is Venice, that is really over has this sorry is very much sorry. Yeah, that's with grand narrative. So one of the things that happened when I started filming and being confronted to what I was seeing and coming back to what I was seeing in my experiences and my discussion with marine biologists was to understand what were the main impacts of that the lagoon ecologies was encountering. And one lesser told story of Venice is perhaps its modernization and industrialization. So I started to try and find ways to also tell that stories and encounter this also perhaps untold and less seen part of Venice through this archive of photography. So I wanted to bring together those two, create a discussion between the kind of industrialization of the lagoon and the current condition that the lagoon is undergoing. And yeah.
Good. Saelia?
¿Suena? Sí. Es que no sabía si tenía que apretar un botón o no. Pues en la galería lo que vais a encontrar, bueno, son unas esculturas que primero tengo que agradecer a toda la gente que me ha ayudado a producirlas, en especial a Araceli, la de producción de aquí, a Flippy, el soplador de vidrio, a Elena y al equipo de carpinteros, porque sin vosotros no habría sido posible. Todo ha sido producido remotamente, era como si volviese a estar en el COVID o algo así, pero solo yo. Y no sé, pues estoy muy contenta con cómo han quedado. Y bueno, pues todas las figuras que hay en la sala son híbridos, porque a mí me interesa mucho la figura del híbrido como un ente interseccional que trasciende entre muchas categorías. O sea, no escapa a los confines del lenguaje y es medio humano, medio planta, medio anguila. Y bueno, hay una figura que está hecha como de serpientes bailando, que está un poco inspirada en las vidrieras de las iglesias, por eso quería que fuese translúcida y que, bueno, pues se mueve un poco y porque me interesa el símbolo de la serpiente que aparece en prácticamente todas las civilizaciones como, bueno, símbolo del mal, pero también de transformación. Y luego está, bueno, me he inspirado mucho en elementos de la cultura inglesa, en particular de la época victoriana, como son puertas de iglesias, y me empecé a mirar a las bisagras y me interesan como un elemento de transición también, y aquí lo he usado como un puente entre el mundo marino y el terrestre, de estos seres mutantes. Luego hay un banco que se puede usar, pero solo si no os ven. Y que, bueno, se llama All is full of love, todo está lleno de amor, y habla pues pero no habla de amor, sino de comunicarnos con el medio ambiente. Son dos gemelas abrazándose y de cómo, o sea, somos parte de lo mismo. Es la idea, que aunque nos separemos del medio ambiente a través del lenguaje, en realidad formamos parte de él y no somos una unidad, sino una multiplicidad andante, ecosistemas andantes dentro de este ecosistema general. Y no sé, creo que ya he dicho bastante.
Muy bien.
Now I have to.
No, you can pass it. Do you want to pick up this? You have to try the other. Do you want to try it?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, my work is called Siggy and the Starfish, and it's I made it in 2016 in northern Spain, and it's been a while. What took you so long to discover
Yeah.
this?
It's loneliness.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks to Tabacalera, there's also Ana Rodriguez in the audience, I see. They were very helpful in making happen. And I could basically do the research and meet all the people and scientists behind the work. And it's actually about adaptation and how evolution, or like looking behind non-humans and humans, how they engage but also not engage within, and to see how adaptation is possible in a very, very fast way. And if we look into the ocean is basically the mother of all living organisms. So basically all plants, they basically emerge from the sea. The trees we have on landscape, they come from the sea. And it's also like David Bowie basically changed the mindset of how gender was like brought up by society. And this is also like an important part of like, why should ecology and gender be queer? Because we look from a heteronormative view as how like, yeah, ecology is made, and it should be basically very fluid, like very liquidish, like as it says in the title, liquid intelligence. So I think everything which is very fluid or like soft as water can also be very gentle, and you know, water always finds its way through every tiny hole. And yeah, and basically you watch the film and you watch all about reproduction. And yeah, it's basically a fish soft porn. And yeah, I was like a gigantic, huge stalker every day, diving for hours in the sea to find nudies and to find flatworms and to see how they reproduce, because it's pretty hard to find these little tiny things floating around, and also like watch like, oh wow, now they're having sex, and it's like, it's okay, it's like a bit like creepy but also funny in a way. But yeah, and then the footage you see, it's mixed footage, so it's a part of my footage I filmed, but also there is a huge part of like found footage where I mixed it together, because I was also thinking that there are already really great filmmakers out, and they have had all the equipment to film this amazing stories of the ocean and life. So I started like to sample it and to sample it into like the film you see, basically. Thank you.
Thanks to you all. So Maria, you are not an artist, but you have been very tightly following the commissions, not only the two that are present in the exhibition, but in general in the foundation. So perhaps you can explain a little bit what is a commission, and also how do you work together with the artists, and how do you follow up the work?
Yes, indeed. I think one of the signature of TBA21 from the collection and TBA21 Academy, that is the part dedicated to the ocean, which I've been working for 6 years now, is really the signature of this commission. And commission is really an engagement with the artists, usually for really long term, that goes minimum 1 year, but usually we have had commissions that goes 2-3 years. And it has been always an open conversation to understand. Sometimes it comes from a proposition from our side. Why don't you look into so-and-so? Can I invite you to be in a conversation with a scientist or a politologist or this anthropologist or this philosopher? I think there is something that I see in your work that I see somewhere else, and there is a mutual inspiration. And I think what we have been doing, I mean, Marcus Reumann, who is here, the director, for 12 years, and Francesca for a really long time, is accompanying those processes and facilitating. Sometimes is economic support, often, but it is also feedback, it's also guidance, it's very much a network of collaborators, and we, in a huge exchange, we have received amazing learning process by being close to the artists. So I hope this is a little bit what we have been doing here.
Absolutely. Veréis que, bueno, ahora en la descripción Beatriz habla de Filoctetes, es decir, es un mito griego, es un soldado enviado a la guerra de Troya, si no recuerdo mal, y debido a un pequeño accidente lo abandonan, una serpiente le muerde en uno de los pies y es abandonado por el resto y se convierte en una historia personal de búsqueda y de intentar un retorno al lugar desde el que ha venido. Es interesante esta referencia al mito. En el caso de Sonia Levy es un trabajo maravilloso que parte de un hecho histórico que es que no se puede lograr el poder totalitario sobre los súbditos si antes los duques de Venecia no se casan con el mar. Es decir, una boda con el mar supone también subyugar a la naturaleza, por así decirlo, o asegurarse que también el océano forma parte de ese pacto de poder del que quienes tienen la última palabra somos los humanos. Duk Hee acaba de decir que su referencia tenía que ver con Ziggy and the Starfish. How is he called? David Bowie. I'm very bad. No, es que no me entero de nada, con el tema este del pop. Pero David Bowie. Y Saelia se ha referido a una canción que no tengo ni idea de quién es, pero se llama All is Full of Love, que es de Björk. Ya, es que no me entero de nada. A lo que íbamos no es a la ignorancia total que yo tengo de la cultura pop, que es infinita, sino al hecho de que en todas las obras, y también en la obra, por supuesto, de Inés, hay lo que yo llamo una nueva vuelta, no solo al storytelling y a la narración de historias, sino a una nueva concepción de que es necesaria una substancia capaz de traducir todas estas ideas complejas en una estética popular o pop. Y esto no es una cuestión casual, bajo mi punto de vista. Y es muy interesante que de formas muy distintas, si uno puede decir, bueno, la cultura pop es una cultura de los mitos, la cultura pop es una cultura de los mitos. La cultura pop también es una cultura de la oralidad, la cultura mítica es una cultura de la oralidad, del contador de historias. Hasta hace muy poco, y lo explicaba esta mañana, a todos aquellos que tenemos bastante que ver con el mundo de la filosofía, contar historias era lo peor. Es decir, la única garantía para llegar a un acuerdo sobre democracia y sobre filosofía política es la cultura argumentativa, no contar cuentos. Es decir, es lo último que se requería de un pensador, son los cuentos. En 1947 regresa primero Adorno, luego Horkheimer, del exilio en Estados Unidos. Horkheimer, de hecho, regresa y se vuelve a Estados Unidos porque no soporta el ambiente en Alemania y regresan porque les piden que ayuden al nuevo Estado democrático todavía no, pero al nuevo Estado alemán a concebir la Constitución. La Constitución, la primera redacción es de 1954. En ese mismo año publican un libro que ya tenían más o menos gestado que se llama La dialéctica de la Ilustración. En el primer capítulo de la dialéctica de la Ilustración están las serpientes y las sirenas de Saelia, por así decirlo. Están un poco las figuras de Inés y está todo lo que está presente en esta exposición. Es decir, ellos dicen que lo que acaba de ocurrir, la gran barbarie del nazismo, tiene que ver por el descontrol con las narraciones y los mitos que, como las sirenas, son capaces de seducir a toda la población y llevársela a lugares donde no debemos ir. Aun en contra de nuestros intereses, como los marineros, se tienen que atar a una proa para no acabar con sus propias vidas y así puede pasar también con los proyectos políticos que llevan a la absoluta aniquilación de todos los valores y de la vida, aun a pesar de que vaya contra nuestros intereses, podemos nosotros, como humanos, ir con esos intereses en contra de nuestra vida. Al final del libro, Horkheimer, más que Adorno, escribe: me temo mucho que vamos a ser totalmente incapaces de erradicar los mitos de la sociedad. Es más, creo que no tenemos los métodos para hacerlo. Lo que deberemos hacer es intentar saber convivir con ellos. En 1957, Italo Calvino escribe un libro, publica un libro, que son muchos años de investigación y de trabajo, que se llama Los cuentos populares italianos. En el prólogo de los cuentos populares italianos, Italo Calvino dice: frente a todos aquellos, se refiere a Horkheimer y Adorno, que creen que la cultura popular y la cultura de los cuentos es una cultura que va contra las libertades individuales y contra el futuro de la democracia, debo decir, como italiano que también ha sobrevivido a la ocupación nazi, que el futuro de los cuentos es el futuro de la pertenencia colectiva. Es el futuro de aquello que nos pertenece a todos nosotros de una forma colectiva y que sostenemos también de una forma colectiva. El futuro de los cuentos es, además, contra la cultura argumentativa, el futuro de una forma de intercambio de ideas y de transmisión que no pone a nadie sobre o por encima de otro nadie. Frente a la cultura dialéctica de los argumentos, que básicamente le da la razón a uno para quitársela al otro, la cultura de las narraciones y de los cuentos es una cultura que está ligada a la semántica y a la forma propia del lenguaje, y es una cultura comunicadora que está aquí para quedarse y para garantizar las libertades de la sociedad. Es muy importante para mí volver a todo esto, sobre todo con vuestros trabajos, porque en muy pocas ocasiones tenemos el honor de poder hablar de estos temas con obras que lo encarnan tan bien. Es decir, lo veréis, y yo creo que es muy importante ver cada uno de los detalles de las obras y tener estas ideas en cuenta, porque son ideas que yo creo que nos van a guiar en la próxima década. Es decir, que vamos a ver cómo será muy importante no solo ganarnos a la gente con información o con los datos correctos o con las teorías correctas sobre lo real, tendremos que ganarnos también formas narrativas distintas que sean capaces de aunarnos como colectividad y hacernos sentir de una forma, ¿cómo se dice? Together, como ha dicho Saelia, es decir, hacernos sentir uno con los valores, pero también con las metas. Sin más rollo, me gustaría, porque muchas veces, y todo el mundo pregunta, otra exposición, arte, naturaleza, arte que tiene que ver con una forma de sentir distinta. Vuestro punto de vista, que habéis trabajado tantos años en esto, por ejemplo, tú, Beatriz, ¿has visto una evolución y ves que realmente hay un cambio de paradigma que está poniendo en valor formas de trabajar y de sentir distintas?
Que si lo he visto en práctica, como una
si lo has visto
transformación.
en la práctica y si lo has sentido, es decir, tú no lo ves desde el punto de vista europeo, sino incluso en el Caribe, en tu propio contexto, es decir, has visto una apertura hacia esos temas por parte, no tanto solamente de los artistas, sino también de las comunidades y de la gente en general.
Sí, supongo que como lo que estaba pensando es que lo que veo es como un entendimiento de que las categorías con bordes fijos, ¿no? Los nombres de las cosas, las taxonomías pueden ser arbitrarias y que es en ese como renombrar y buscar otras formas transicionales, transformadoras, como tratar de, que es donde se hace un trabajo estético y de lenguaje importante para poder ver el mundo o entenderse en el mundo de otra manera, como para poder entendernos no como un organismo que termina aquí, sino como este organismo o este organismo. Tenemos que tener otras formas, otros nombres, y como creo que lo hemos abordado de diferentes maneras, o sea, incluso hablar como de la serpiente o hablar de lo queer relacionado al océano, tiene, de cierta manera, tienen en común ese salirse de esas categorías, de esos supuestos que sabemos. Que es un trabajo difícil porque no es que esté adentro de nosotros, como nosotros tenemos este nuevo conocimiento, sino que tenemos que ponernos en el mundo, en un proceso experimental, a veces azaroso, para mí como de reencontrarme con ese mito, ¿no? A ver qué otra cosa puede ser. Y que no necesariamente uno sabe cuál es el fin o el final, o si te va a llevar al camino que necesitas. Sí.
Totally. And you have been sometimes talking about wake up. We have been sometimes talking about artificial stupidity, and I think that it would be really nice to bring it, now that we are talking about liquid intelligence, to talk about the relationship with technology that in your case is also a very specific one, and also with this idea of artificial stupidity and the question of who possesses the intelligence and how to relate to these big notions.
Yeah, something to wake up. I'm doing neurofeedback, and it's really interesting. When I have to concentrate, I go into theta, which means I go and I start to dream. This is what happened. So, yeah, say again, what? So artificial intelligence versus artificial stupidity. I mean, it's a kind of a long-term research I'm doing, and it's also like it also brings fun to me, like to create all these machines, and they go entirely analog. So there is like no Arduino or Raspberry or any other digital medium behind. So you see the wires, you see the motors, you see everything is very straightforward. As you also see the structure up at the Stygian starfish wave. And they basically, they intend to do something to make, to clean up the oceans. For instance, there's the water crab, and there's a net, and you have a remote control, and you can move the crab in the waters and can collect the crab, also the waste. And and wait. And yeah, but then if you look at it, you see that the crab can never reach with the feet its water. The net is too high, so it can't basically collect the waste. And there's another waste crab who always collects the waste, and then she starts to throwing it out again. And you intend to feed the crab because you feel so like compassionate with the crab that you want to feed her all the waste, and then she starts it again to throw it out. And so it's basically always like an image and something what we reproduce, like our human waste or what we do every daily life. So I transfer it into this kind of like image of like what is intelligence or what is stupidity, and who has the right even like to say I'm intelligent or I'm stupid? What does that mean? And I think we need stupidity in order to understand the intelligence and how machines are built up upon like sexism or like on race and gender. If you go through the airport and they don't recognize my face because my eyes are too white or my skin is too dark, and then the computer doesn't recognize me anymore because there was someone else behind the program who did it, or like the fridge who is like maybe too cool or too hot, or like, I mean, we also like engage and we live with these machines, and there's also kind of kinship we have to have together also in a collaboration. So it's this kind of like, dancing with stupidity in our daily life. Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah. Stupidity, never like dies out.
And Sonia, a question for you. You have been, I think you will see that the exhibition also kind of mixes several registers, that they go from, let's say, a more documentary conceptual way to address some data and also some theories and some scientific interpretations and perceptions, together with more exuberant and full of fantasy type of language, which I think is very important also to activate two imaginations at once. And in your work, it's kind of both are activated at once. On the one hand, you would see a study of the substrata of the laguna in Venice, but also the fact that you work with a choir, and then, of course, the choir is not what you mainly kind of expect when somebody is kind of releasing situations and circumstances to you as data. So perhaps you can say a few words about that kind of juxtaposition of these two walls.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And yeah, sorry, my introvert self sometimes have a little slight panic when I do public speaking. So I didn't mention this important part of the project, which is the soundtrack, which was created in collaboration with a choir conductor, Esmeralda Conde Ruiz. And first, perhaps I could situate a little bit why I really wanted to work with the choir, which was something that really struck me in an environment like the lagoon is that it was really, really difficult to draw the line between what perhaps was natural and what was man-made, and it's been changed and managed for so long that it was really interesting to see that sort of long duration of especially we perhaps have less that view of like water bodies that they have been changed and managed for so long. So there has been river diversion, there has been so many different things that have changed the lagoon, or channel digging, or etc. and so on, that had so many different various impact and ricocheting and feedback effect on the ecology of the lagoon. And that was absolutely fascinating example to understand how the relationalities that the world is made of, and that you were also talking about this liquid intelligence. And I feel like for me, working with watery environment in the ocean, that has been like one of the most incredible thing to learn, how the world is so relational all the time. And what I was experiencing, wanted people to experience also with the choir was that impact. And so to locate human voices within a submerged spaces, that perhaps something we think less, because it's below that waterline. So I work with a choir to both embody the actual current of the lagoon that are changing because of those dredging, those industrialization. So currents that are being enhanced, and erosion and loss of sediment that is also driving further the sinking of Venice. So I wanted to bring that with human voices. We also work to enhance the sort of very dramatic the dramatization of those images and their darkness, and through embodying the kind of very mechanic, industrialized process, and that was actually interesting because it's very different than what choir I used to doing and working in unison, and they all had to work very differently than how they worked. But that was really, really fascinating way of working that I loved exploring.
Thank you so much. And I'm actually working in an art school, and then the other day, on Thursday, like the works of Inês were kind of about to be shipped, and then I was having some gathering with the new students that they just started, and then I just, a projector was there, and I projected some of the images, and then the whole group of the bachelor students said, "Oh, bodies of water!" And this is super important to me because one of the texts that we repeatedly read together is Astrida Neymanes, which is a philosopher that talks a lot about bodies of water, and it's so difficult sometimes to imagine it. So I thought, this is magic. Then all of a sudden, everyone knew what bodies of water are. So they have a face and a body to the concept. And it was so funny that everyone respond with that. So I know that you are also a big admirer of Strida. Perhaps you can say a little bit about what these bodies of water are for you and how they are also evolving in your work, because they have been appearing a lot since years. I know the work is also changing, and this has been a big piece of work. So perhaps you can introduce us a little bit more into it.
As I said before, water is present in our bodies, and it's what connects us. But most of all, what Astrida says is that all water, since the beginning of nature, since the beginning of humankind, has never been lost. It has constantly transformed. So imagine the water that has been once on the eye of a dinosaur is perhaps on your feet right now. Or when we exchange fluids, when we kiss each other, when we hold hands, we are constantly exchanging water. So in my work, what I think about in relationship to water is there's many ways to think about it, but body of water is to consider yourself not as a fixed entity, but something in constant transformation. Think about your identity. Every cell of your body in every cycle of 7 years is completely different. But somehow we have this, I would say, sick mind to think about fixed identities when we think about ourselves. And I would like people to be able to think of themselves as a body of water, to be able to be more flexible. Because to think of water is to, in a way, learn about empathy, to learn about vulnerability. All of these ecological questions that I'm hearing, we are talking about the outside world, but think of yourselves, of your inner world. And I think that if we're not loving the earth, it's because we don't love ourselves. And I think we need to start working there so that we can then be able to transmit that same love to nature. My work has a lot of this, and I think that's why people connect a lot with it. I've made a big shift in my work the last 2 years. Before I was doing abstract works and I was hiding beneath these big concepts. And then out of a very personal need, my work became something that demanded from me that I was brutally honest with myself. And I no longer use my rational to think about my work, but rather my emotions. And I think you all feel that when you are in front of my paintings. And this is kind of what I wish for all of you, that we are able to connect with this vulnerable place within us, with our feelings, because this is all connected to nature in a way. And if you see, sorry to extend, but water, I don't know if you're familiar with this concept of circlusion. It's a concept created quite recently by Bini Adamczak. I'm not sure I'm saying their name correctly. But circlusion, I've noticed, I reached circlusion because I was wondering, what is the opposite of penetration? And I couldn't think of it. And I asked many people, and so many people were like, oh, receiving, passive. I'm like, no, because, you know, penetration renders the act of penetrating active, and who gets penetrated, passive. But if you look at water, there's this new term since 2016 called circlusion. What you do not penetrate water. Water opens its paths around you and it circludes you, it enfolds you. And you'll see that this is very much present in my work, this idea of circlusion. So I think this is the shift that society needs to do. Think of the things that we considered passive as active. Give strength to the things that we've been considered weak as active. And this is a lesson that water carries, and I think that Astrida Neymanes talks a lot about this. At least it's my own interpretation of it.
It's a very beautiful interpretation of it.
Thank you.
So, Saelia, you are the boldest one because you have been producing inhabitants of this new ocean. I think, well, big respect, because you create these environments, and as exhibitions are environments where every work breathes, but then you came in with creatures for this new environment. And yeah, how do you feel about it now that, you know, your work is a lot about the production of hybrids, but I must say that inside this context, somehow I kind of understood even more your, you know, invitation to make these walls coming together. So perhaps you can say something about. Yeah, no, about your own work inside the exhibition. I think it's difficult to put sculpture in such a context. Just formally speaking, it's a challenging moment. Jumana Mana also has it. Unfortunately, she's not here with us. But you also. So, you know, it's a fluid wall, and then all of a sudden there is forms, and you see this creature, so.
Hola. Yeah. Sí. ¿Sí?
Sí.
I'm thinking about the question. Yes, well, like in that sense, I think all the words relate to like expanded drawing, because at the beginning I wanted to make murals, but I couldn't come to make them. So it's like, okay, how can I adapt this into sculptures? Is that what you are asking me?
No, yes, of course, how the work evolved.
Yeah, how they become like drawings. Sorry, I didn't want to be funny. That relate more with the environment, the gallery that they are in, and that, yeah. I think I have answered the question, but maybe that was a bit brief. Yeah.
No, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what? You would see it in the space is the best experience they can have. Last question to Maria. I think you have following the works, but those works, the one of Sonia and the one of Beatriz, did not have an exhibition form before yesterday. So is it what you expected?
Yeah, of course, it's more even than I expected. I think it's an explosion of image. Both of them, they are decolonizing our way of imagining some spaces, natural spaces, the Caribbean, and the exercise is really engaging with how we can imagine. So the journey is fantastic. It's both documentary, poetic, music, the drawings that Beatriz has not talked about,
Yeah.
and it's very unusual. So yes, very much. Thank you.
So thank you so much. I would just end it here because there is something very important to do, which is seeing the exhibition again, now that we have the words of the artist in our minds. And perhaps there is a little bit, if somebody wants to make a question, si alguien tiene una pregunta, estaremos encantados. Mientras os la pensáis, hay una pregunta. Daniela. Microphone.
This is my nature. Well, listen, thank you very much. It's more a comment than a question, but Marcus knows that. I think something you said, Chus, about myth, and I wanted to point out, for those who might not know, there's a really interesting work by a French anthropologist called Natasha Martin, who's been working a lot in Siberia, in the sort of global north, and discussing and actually demonstrating through paleoarchaeology that a lot of the mythical animals, especially hybrid animals, no, that appear in myth have actually existed. That they are not just sort of mythical beings that have been invented, but now with climate change where we're seeing very similar phenomena again, no? That basically species that have not mated in the past because they either didn't share the same territory or had different, sexual interests, they're now sort of coming closer, and the brown bear and the white bear, whatever, they're sort of getting together. So there are new forms of hybridity that exist today, that have existed, and that are recorded in myths. And actually, there is a sort of a reconsideration and a deconstruction, let's say, of the mythical, in that sense.
Totally.
So I think that's, quite interesting, perhaps, as a comment. And maybe because you had a very strong sort of way of looking at gender choices, maybe what I want to say about that, and I know this starts a long discussion and maybe we'll have a long night talking about that, but I think, again, I'd like to connect it a bit with what Chus said earlier, which in a way is in how we have come or have been trained to now understand freedom, which is more a fact of making choices, right? So think about the supermarket, and you make choices. So freedom is the freedom of making choices, and the freedom of making choices that then lead to what we call the individual, right? The individual is that in a sort of capitalist, commercialized system has the ability and the potential to make choices without actually carrying the consequences of it. In the same way, gender choices, have become, part of that sort of, let's say, choice-making apparatus where you had to basically define, if you wanted to, and we're striving for an identity, you had to define your gender. No? So it's not so much a sickness, but it's actually sort of the way how all our subjectivities, our individuality, our sexuality, our lovemaking, all of that has been kind of put into that passage of making choices and having to actually kind of divide. So that's my comment for today.
Very nice. Very nice, because we can discuss these issues also in the exhibition with the artists. Y un momentito de autopromoción. Yo he escrito un texto, porque como comisario te lo piden, y está en la web colgadito de TBA21. Bajaoslo, aunque no os lo leáis. Gracias. Vamos a ver la expo.